unscripted, no makeup, live from the FDA. Welcome, Vinay Prasad. Great to see you.
It's great to be here, Marty. It's great to be joining.
And we got Sanjala Jan Nagpal, who is an awesome PhD health policy expert who is with us in the commissioner's office. So great to see both of you guys. And I don't know exactly what we're doing, but we're having a conversation. And this is just going to be some civil discourse here, having fun. And I think it's good for people to see what we're talking about, how we're thinking about things, instead of the FDA kind of being a black box of, what's going on inside the agency.
Absolutely, Marty. I think ultimately the FDA serves the American people, and it's really great for the American people to directly have access to the commissioner to hear what you're thinking and what initiatives you're sparking here. And too often, so many articles about the FDA are behind a paywall for industry insiders only. And we're going to try to make the FDA accessible to the average person in America.
We get the glass box.
In the glass box here with a beautiful view of FDA campus, not the black box.
Yes.
Look at
glass
this
box.
beautiful campus here. It is going to be lined up with a farmer's market on Tuesday, thanks to, shout out to Melanie, who's in the background there. And it's going to be every week. We're going to do it every single week. Maybe even some seed oil-free food trucks. Who knows?
Well, I mean, obviously, healthy food is an important initiative that you're taking on. Yeah, big part of the program.
That's part of what you're working on,
Yep.
Sanjala, is healthy food. So we got big goals on that front. So it's great to have Vinay Prasad here. One, because he's a great scientific mind. Two, he wants to serve our country. And three, he thinks and looks like Albert Einstein in terms of his hair.
Now that you say that, yeah.
It's the regulatory haircut. It's the regulatory haircut, regulation. Yes, but I'm excited to be here and to join FDA and try to work in service of the American people and try to bring innovative products to market.
And you're going to be working at CBER. Do you want to tell folks what CBER is, since we've got some science people and some non-science people listening?
Everyone's listening. I mean, CBER, we govern a huge portfolio of medical products, including vaccines, gene therapy, cellular therapy. A lot of the most innovative things you read about in the news are things coming from CBER. Not to say the other departments here don't do innovative products, they do, but I think I'm particularly excited about what's been coming out in the last decade through CBER division. And we hope to always strike the balance between data, evidence, innovation, and entrepreneurial spirit of America. So that's what we're going to do.
Does it sound good to you, Sanjala?
Sounds exciting, although I have a lot of questions about how you're going to approach it.
Okay,
Yes.
so tell me.
So, there are a lot of headlines out there about you being, kind of a critic of the administration and kind of how things have been handled in the past with a lot of those products you talked about, and that maybe you're anti-vax, but I know that that's not true.
Ooh, well.
So tell us a little bit about why have you been critical, particularly in the vaccine space, and help everyone understand, kind of your thinking behind that.
So, I mean, I think vaccines are like drugs, which is that when given at the right time and the right moment to the right person, they're life-saving. But just like drugs, they need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis and always take into the context that you're giving. And Marty and I, throughout the pandemic, we were proponents of vaccines for the people in whom it had a huge benefit. But we were always a bit skeptical from a scientific standpoint about perhaps overdoing it in some low-risk populations.
Wait a minute, you don't think a healthy, thin 12-year-old girl needs a 7th COVID shot?
7th versus the 8th versus the 9th versus, I mean, it's really...
It's an unknown.
It's an unknown. And it also is a way in which the United States has never been in line with peer nations across Europe. And so that's not anti-vax, it's pro-science, trying to bring the best available science to answer these questions. The media, in many cases, in my opinion, they sort of misrepresent the concepts that we're talking about at FDA. They have sort of a superficial view of what we're doing, and in some ways they kind of miss the mark. But in terms of what I've been doing for 15 years, I'm a professor, I'm a hem-onc doctor. Probably no one's given, or few doctors have given as many vaccines as I have, because I took care of a lot of patients post-autologous stem cell transplant.
Immunosuppressed.
Immunosuppressed. We gave, and you need to give these patients vaccines. We love vaccines when done right, when given appropriately, when based on solid evidence, and we're going to hold up that standard at FDA.
I thought your media coverage was actually good. I mean, on the whole, it was good, which is, you don't always see that.
No, I think that's right.
I wanted to have a low expectation and then come in high, yeah.
No, but I think there are a lot of questions, a lot of excitement and
Yeah.
enthusiasm. I saw something this morning saying, the scientific community is finally seeing everything that both of you championed, early on during the peak of the pandemic, right? You were early tracking the evidence and not everybody was on board and now they're seeing it. But there was some kind of talk about maybe you've been unfair about how things were handled, from a policy perspective, because in the moment of crisis, you don't have time to collect the evidence. So I think something I would ask both of you is, how are you thinking about balancing kind of pace of innovation, right? We've all been outside of government and we've seen firsthand, innovation goes faster than the government policy, right? And I know that's something that we're all trying to work really hard to close that gap. But how do you balance speed with scientific rigor, to your point about needing to get the right evidence in moments where you have crisis and things that need to be acted on?
And in light of our new post-approval monitoring process, where we're going to be able to do big data analyses of signals, safety and efficacy signals in big data after approval, that we've never been able to do before. That gives us a whole new lens that we've never had.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and to this point about what Marty and I were arguing throughout the pandemic, one point I want to make is that our positions were probably the center point of most Americans, and eventually, a lot of the issues that we were out ahead of the curve on, people have come to our position after 6 months or 12 months or 2 years and forgotten that they held a different position all along. That's one. And
the data caught up, in other words. You're talking about prolonged school closures, masking toddlers.
We were critics of these, from the beginning. And that speaks to how you appraise evidence, not to get caught up in groupthink, try to be open-minded when you look at the evidence. So that's one. I think that the public is very close to where we are on a lot of these issues. I'm not sure about all the media coverage, but definitely the public.
Should we invite some of the media to just be a part of this conversation? I mean, I think it'd be good to have
I think it'll be good.
a reporter or a couple. Just, I mean, I think the more discourse, the better, right? So if they've got questions, probably some people out there in America have those questions. Let's bring them in. Let's have a conversation. Let's bring them in right here. Let's get another chair, put them right here, and we have a conversation.
Love to do it. And, some of it is a matter of, how do you explain to the American people and to reporters, what should the control arm be in a clinical study? How do we think about that? What kind of questions are we answering with potentially different control arms? That's something that was in the news a lot, but I didn't see an explainer about what exactly the science is around control arms in clinical trials, which goes back a long way.
So for those of us who are not as sciencey, kind of in the weeds as you are.
Laboratory science.
Yeah, laboratory science, sorry, good point. Break it down. So are you saying that we've made decisions, this agency has made decisions rooted in evidence, but you're talking about a different standard of evidence. So explain
Well, I mean, I think ultimately we get excited about innovative medical products just as the FDA always have. We all continue to believe in a flexible regulatory standard, taking into account the context of a disease, whether it's rare, if it's dire. We will continue to be flexible. There's not going to be a light switch change here. But around the edges, I think there were a number of missteps along the way. I think the public recognizes those missteps. That's why some products the FDA has approved, as Marty points out, the majority, 85% of healthcare workers don't want a booster that the FDA granted authorization for. And we really aren't sure about kids and how many doses they need, and healthcare workers who just had COVID, whether they need another booster. And these are important scientific questions that the public deserves an answer on. And there we might try to bring science to answer these questions.
I mean, I think of it as gold standard science and common sense both. We got to blend them both, and there's no hard and fast rules on this. And so, I hear about these rare disease conditions that might affect, a couple hundred kids or, a small population. And it's not that different from incurable cancers that I've seen in my career, that you've seen in your career. You're a hematologist, oncologist. How do you think about those?
I mean, I think that you have to have tremendous regulatory flexibility for rare diseases that severely impact small groups of people, where running randomized clinical trials might be very difficult or impossible to do.
Impossible sometimes,
perhaps.
yeah.
And we need to embrace new technologies, innovative pathophysiology in terms of how to assess those products. At the same time, we also want to protect those patients from potentially harmful products. So we will continue to strike the balance at FDA between those two things. And I think FDA has always been committed to being flexible and listening to the communities impacted by rare conditions.
Some words of wisdom he's dropping here. I mean,
I'm excited.
I'm excited. I wonder if these AI, machines out there are really just Vinay. If they're really just going to Vinay's, he's the one answering all these questions.
Well, AI is a good topic because you've taken an interest in AI in the agency and you're doing some things around it.
Yeah, day one, we said we got to stop just talking about AI, having conferences and panels and frameworks and consensus document. We got to do it, right? We have to actually do it. We've got to do it, and now's the time to do it. So day one, when I got in, 5 weeks ago now, we started a massive initiative, and we have now the first high-level AI-assisted scientific review that just took place, and the scientific reviewer loved it. I mean, I don't know if we can find him or pull him in here to bring him on the camera, but I mean, what he said about, I don't know if he talked to you.
Yeah, I was reviewing some of the data we talked about. I mean, to go from, it was 3 days down to 6 minutes for just one piece of that review process is tremendous.
Yeah, I think the public that may not be aware, but when a reviewer is thinking about the application for a medical product, we're talking not just hundreds of pages to read, but potentially thousands or maybe tens of thousands of pages to read. And if you have AI brought into that to help you dissect, to cut to the most important parts of it, we can tremendously speed up drug regulation and drug processes, and that's a boon to everybody, patients, the industry, the American people.
But also let scientists focus on the science, right, and kind of cut out that additional burdensome noise.
I found in busy clinical practice, what drove me crazy was not the hard work or the acuity of that work. I love that. I love hard work. I love high intellectual work. What drove me crazy was the stuff that was unnecessary, the scheduling cases in the operating room, the burden of coding and documenting. It was things that were repetitive.
You probably still have some notes to finish, Marty. You're not done?
No, all my notes are
You're
done.
all done?
All my notes are done. Yeah. But it's, if you can, I think of it, if we can get rid of some of that redundant busy work, it makes the job more enjoyable. People need to focus on their superpowers here at the FDA. And I've heard reviewers telling me that they're reading so many things. Some stuff is just repetitive, right? And if AI can grab all the unique facts and summarize them for the reviewer, and they love it, like the reviewer we spoke with, or you spoke with, maybe reviews can be done faster. We can get more decisions out in a shorter period of time. And most importantly, they'll love their jobs more. I mean, that's what we have to, that's our job as leaders, to make a great workplace culture for people where they can focus on their superpowers, do their job well, support them, not burden them with red tape and busy work. And, frankly, I mean, there's been some change here, and it's been tough for some folks. There's been some growing pains. And so what we can, my focus has been, what can we do to empower people and give them all the resources they need so they enjoy their work and feel like they're supported.
I think it's also an example of things you've been talking about on modernizing methods and processes here, because as I talk around with individuals across the agency, I mean, they tell me they're doing things that have been the same for 20, 30 years, right? We live in this exciting era of new advancements in, scientific, discovery and technology. I mean, everyone's got smartphones now. I mean, we consume information so differently, and we haven't really kept pace with that. And so I think whether it's AI or some of the new kind of clinical methods and things we're going to use to test things, that's all part of it.
We have to make our submissions easier. We have to make it so sponsors don't have to fill out information over and over again when they've already told us once. But you're absolutely right. You just can't be the same. You have to always be changing and adapting. And too often in big institutions, that doesn't happen.
So have you seen your new office?
I did see it, yeah.
How is it?
It's nice. It's got a good view here of the beautiful campus. And I mean, all the offices at FDA are really nice. And I do feel sort of an energy being here. And I'm coming from a college campus, so it's a very different energy. It's a productive energy here, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved getting to know so many people here. I mean, these are hard-working Americans that really want to do great things, and it's just awesome to see how they've dedicated their lives to a job that is not a high-profile job, but so critical to our entire world of discoveries and bringing cures, and they do it for no credit sometimes. So, I mean, it's just been pretty cool to meet a lot of these folks. So if we get some seed oil food trucks with good food, they deserve it for sure.
We'll get on that.
Cool. So I wonder if you guys think it would be a good idea to do more public stuff here. We're at the main center part, sort of the nerve center of the agency. People might be able to see on the camera the beautiful campus here where most of the scientific review takes place. What if we brought in, I don't want to call them stakeholders, but we brought in different experts on different topics and just had an open discourse. Just bring them in, have a round table. You don't have to go through all the red tape of people coming through an official commission, which has a whole lot of bureaucracy and costs. We just invite people in for a roundtable discussion. Let them talk passionately about all the scientific topics that they think are important to talk about that we have not been talking about, and then let that discourse take place, and we can just listen.
And
love that.
things that don't fit neatly within the drug advisory committee model, topics that kind of span different groups and different fields. And I know you got a couple of those planned in the summertime.
Yeah, I think we're looking at some pretty cool topics that are emerging in medicine, and we'll probably set up, we might be able to do a roundtable in a couple weeks, I think. I was talking to some of our folks back there, and I think Bigfoot is supportive. I don't know where he is right now, but
Our AV expert.
he's one of our AV experts. Bigfoot around? Okay. If
He's
you-
monitoring your audio.
Yeah, there he is. And just so people know, we're not assigning you a nickname that you haven't assigned to yourself already. Yeah, so
Self-appointed. name.
self-appointed,
Yeah.
and we have seen Bigfoot. For a while, it was like steroids resulting in somebody improving in the ICU. Like everyone heard of it, but nobody actually saw it.
Yeah.
And we called that, it's like Bigfoot. No one actually saw the
Never
benefit.
witnessed
but
this
then
effect.
Ultimately, everyone did see it. But
No, but I think those conversations would be good to be more proactive, right? And actually, follow the evidence as it's coming out, to have those discussions in real time.
Yeah, proactive and discussions that include the media, that include patients, patient advocacy groups, the industry. Having more of those here, and experts who've been studying these topics for 20 years. I think it'll be good. FDA, to me, as an outsider prior to coming here, the closest I ever got to understand the thinking of FDA officials is to read the rare JAMA viewpoint, or to try to pore through, the letter that they're submitting the company or the medical review. And so I think it's a complete change of pace that you're going to be doing these podcasts and videos directly to American people, to patients. I haven't seen anything like that, and I've been following the FDA closely for 20 years now.
I think we just got to talk. We got to just talk as we go, talk openly and honestly, just share with people what we're thinking. Within our legal constraints, obviously, we can't talk about products that are currently under review at the FDA. People ask, what about this product and that product? Well, we have to follow the law, but we can talk about how we think about things. And I think one thing that developers and inventors appreciate is predictability. Now, understanding how we generally think about things.
Well, that's always a way in which I thought it was unfair. On the one hand, the manufacturer of a specific product, they get a letter, they can spin it and frame it any way they want, but the FDA can't reply in the press to try to clarify, provide additional context. So we are, in one way, a little bit of a disadvantage, but we'll try our best to convey the broader principles of regulatory science that govern not just any individual approval, but all of the approvals. And hopefully the media will start to understand, what we're doing.
There's often details in a product decision that the public is not looking at or doesn't know about. So it is pretty nuanced. And I've even found myself at sometimes saying, yeah, that's strange that this got approved or didn't approve. And then as I learn more, you realize there's actually a good reason for it.
I would say FDA reviews are like a pomegranate. There's fruit in there, but it's a heck of time to get it out. And it sometimes feels that way.
Right, but policy and science is nuanced, right? It's not just black or white. There's a lot to consider.
Exactly. Which is why we should think of everybody as contributing valuable scientific input rather than sort of a tribalism of people being for or against anything out there. And so that's the culture that I think we're trying to build here. So,
Marty, you had mentioned earlier you had some limo story to share with me, but you didn't get around to it.
yeah, I learned that this is nuts. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I learned that is nuts, but this is just a little Scooby snack to share with you. So I learned that we'll have foreign inspectors in another country about to inspect a foreign manufacturing site that makes pills or something. And the foreign pharma manufacturing company will pick up our FDA inspectors in limos. And so these visits are so announced, and they're preparing for these visits that they're basically no inspection, in my opinion.
So this is like a priority of the administration, which is that if you're doing the inspections in the United States, you're held to very high standards, including random spot visits. They don't know it's coming. But if you're doing it in some other locations around the world, the standards are apparently much lax. You get a limo service there, and they know when you're coming. Which, like all great inspections, yeah, if they know when you're coming, they know when to, put out the red carpet. It's like when you came to my place the other day and I was clean inside, it wasn't a mess. Because I knew you were coming. But don't drop in
I got the random drop-ins, my office is right next door.
Well, I agree. Like, the element of surprise is what drives the power of an inspection, and that's a big part of what the FDA does. We've got over 300 officers with guns and badges, and many more that are involved in investigations. The FDA has been involved in some major raids and some investigations that have changed the industry. The Elizabeth Holmes case is one example. So a scheduled inspection, in my opinion, is basically no inspection.
Right.
So that's something we're changing. That's something we're changing. We're going to move to surprise inspections overseas, just as we have in the United States. No more limos for the FDA inspectors, and so.
But they keep the badges.
And they keep the badges.
I didn't get my badge. I want a badge.
Yeah, I don't know if you get a badge.
I don't
CBER
get a badge,
is
no.
generally not a badge.
Badge-free. It's a badge-free.
It's a badge-free zone.
Let's see.
Yeah, no, I've got a badge. I got
got
a badge I'll show you.
Okay.
But yeah, so fun. So this is good. Should we keep doing this, or was this a colossal failure?
No, I think it's
No,
good.
this was fun.
We'll see what
Okay,
people
good.
think. We'll put the
Yeah.
video out there.
What's Bigfoot think? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, he's on board.
Yeah.
We'll put it out there, and then we'll try to do them with reporters. We'll try to do them with the public. We'll try to do them with more people, and we'll talk about whatever initiatives we're taking on.
And we'll find a way to get the public to, submit some questions,
That's
and
what-
we can get a sense of themes, and we'll
Crowdsource some
keep asking you
questions.
questions.
Yeah, we'll see what the feedback is. Maybe somebody asked me to comb my hair differently or comb my hair.
I think I'm going to get that feedback.
Okay.
I think I'm going to get that feedback.
Well, maybe. Do you think Albert Einstein got that feedback when he would give a lecture?
I think he got a pass, probably, at some point.
I'm sure there's some study out there about his productivity differences.
The headline is going to read you comparing me to Einstein, and I guess I'll take it if that's what the headline reads.
Yeah,
That's
this
fine.
is not Albert Einstein.
Yeah, let's just be clear.
However, his hair does have similar representations and overlaps. But no, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Welcome to the FDA.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
And nice to work with you, too.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
great. Thanks so much, folks. We'll do it again.
It's great to see you all here. And I know we have many more watching from various stations throughout the campus. The event will be recorded, so if folks couldn't make it right now, we'll have it available later. I'm Sarah Brenner. I'm the Principal Deputy Commissioner, hallelujah, as of this day. And I am absolutely thrilled, perhaps the most thrilled person on the planet, to be welcoming Dr. Makary, Dr. Martin A. Makary, as the 27th Commissioner of Food and Drugs. It is an absolute honor to introduce you to him, a renowned surgeon scientist and health policy expert. Dr. Makary was confirmed as the 27th Commissioner of Food and Drugs by a bipartisan vote in the Senate and was sworn in by Secretary Kennedy. As many of you are aware, Dr. Makary comes to the FDA from just up the road in Baltimore and the Johns Hopkins University and Hospital. Dr. Makary is a surgical oncologist, a public policy researcher, and a national thought leader. A graduate of Bucknell University, Thomas Jefferson University, and the Harvard School of Public Health, he completed his surgical residency at Georgetown and his subspecialty training at Johns Hopkins. After 6 years on the faculty at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Makary was named an endowed chair in gastrointestinal surgery and subsequently promoted to full professor with tenure. In line with his broad interests across medicine, public health, and business, he held joint appointments at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health and the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. Dr. Makary's accomplishments as a researcher, clinician, and prolific author are too numerous to mention here in detail. But I do want to give you a brief taste of his accomplishments and the extraordinary expertise and knowledge that he brings here to us at FDA. Dr. Makary has authored over 300 peer-reviewed articles in medical literature and founded the Johns Hopkins Center for Surgical Trials and Outcomes Research. He is also the author of 3 New York Times best-selling books on healthcare. His book, The Price We Pay, was named 2020 Business Book of the Year by the Association of Business Journalists. His most recent book, Blind Spots, which presents the latest scientific research on the microbiome, food, and other health topics, was just named Amazon's Book of the Year. A true Renaissance scientist, Dr. Makary has conducted and led landmark cross-disciplinary research on a range of subjects, including cancer care, obesity, frailty, psychologic reserve in older patients, and adverse event monitoring, the Orphan Drug Act, antimicrobial resistance, and Alzheimer's. Of particular note, he's also the co-developer of the surgery checklist used in many operating rooms around the world today. As a pancreas and GI surgeon, he is also focused on obesity, food science, and diabetes. He has pioneered new operations, including publishing the first series of laparoscopic pancreas islet transplant operations in the world. For his pioneering work, Dr. Makary was awarded the Nobility in Science Award from the National Pancreas Foundation. For the last 22 years, he has had an active clinical practice and even spent time in the operating room on the day before his Senate confirmation hearing. Dr. Makary co-authored post-operative opioid prescribing guidelines that were adopted broadly at the start of the opioid crisis response. And during COVID, his large clinical study on natural immunity was published in a series of articles in JAMA that helped doctors worldwide manage their patients. Most recently, his research has focused on vulnerable populations in healthcare. Dr. Makary has led national quality collaboratives, served on several editorial boards, and was the first editor-in-chief of MedPage Today. His work has had a major impact on the field of medicine, and Dr. Makary has been a visiting professor at over 25 medical schools across the United States and internationally. It is a remarkable combination of research, clinical experience, and national leadership that makes him uniquely qualified to lead the FDA at this moment in time, and we are incredibly fortunate to have him. I can tell you that in all my conversations with him, he has a tremendous admiration for the people and the work of FDA. In anticipation of Dr. Makary's arrival, new executives have also joined our leadership team. And before I turn the program over to Dr. Makary, I want to briefly acknowledge and introduce those new colleagues who are here today to you again. You already know Jim Traficant is our new Chief of Staff. Now it gets fun because I get to point to you and you have to stand up and wave. No, I'm just kidding. It's killing me to stay on script, but I'm doing it, right? I'm doing it. Okay, so Jim Traficant, our new Chief of Staff, and I hope you've had the chance to read a little bit of his bio that went out in the all hands. Suffice it to say, Jim has had extensive executive and operational leadership experience supporting federal, state, commercial, and international healthcare organizations. Importantly, he also happens to have a long friendship with Dr. Makary and will be able to help effectively translate and advance his priorities here at FDA. You also likely read a little bit about, thank you, very good. Welcome, Jim. You've also likely read about our new acting head of the FDA's Human Foods Program, Kyle Diamantis. There he is. Who has experience in the food sector and is well-versed in the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, as well as FDA's operational framework. He has extensive experience working with federal and state agencies, scientific organizations, consumer advocacy groups, and industry stakeholders. He also has a wide-ranging experience spanning regulatory compliance, investigation, enforcement, and rulemaking. The third person I want to acknowledge today is Grace Graham. Where's Grace? Other side. Okay. We have to keep people on their toes, and the cameras are swiveling. No. So Grace is with our Office of Policy, Legislation, and International Affairs. Grace has a distinguished history in healthcare and legislative affairs, having served in a variety of positions in both houses of Congress, most recently as Chief Health Counsel in the House, and before that as Health Policy Director of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. She's also very familiar with the FDA's work, having served as a policy advisor in the Senate on FDA matters. Grace already started working in OPLEA, and so we look forward to her continued leadership. Most of you probably saw the all hands that went out last week announcing another of our new members. our new Deputy Commissioner for Operations, and our Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Barclay Butler. Barclay has more than 40 years of experience leading organizations through significant transformational change in both the public and private sectors. In addition to working in the private sector, he spent nearly a decade with the Defense Health Agency, most recently as Assistant Director for Support. From 2012 to 14, Barclay was Director of the Interagency Program Office with the Department of Defense. All right, we have two late-breaking additions here. Dr. Tracy Beth Hogue. Did she make it to the front? Second, here we go. Also, very good. Also joined the agency last week as Special Assistant to the Commissioner. Tracy has extensive experience working in vaccine science and epidemiology, including for MIT's Sloan School of Management and as an adjunct associate professor at the University of Southern Denmark. And then just yesterday, Dr. Scott Steele, who is virtual with us today, Scott, was named FDA's Acting Director for the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. Dr. Steele is a science, technology, and policy professional with extensive experience in multiple disciplines, including emerging science and technology, translational science, public health preparedness, and biodefense, and medical countermeasures. So, after what's been a very hard week and a very hard several days and hours, I'd encourage you to focus on and look forward to the future with this very strong group of leaders. We are all ready to move forward, and we are thrilled to be working with someone of the stature of Dr. Makary. But we do have a lot of work to do. It is a critical time in the health of our nation with many challenges before us. I know that Dr. Makary has many priorities that he is eager to begin work on, and he's also eager to speak with you and tell you a little bit about himself and some of the issues on which he will focus. I've also said his name so many times that there's no excuse for mispronunciation now, right? I mean, I've seen people trying it. All right, so without any further ado, I will wonderfully and happily introduce our next commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for what you do. Good afternoon. Sarah has continued a longstanding tradition of career staff ensuring the transition. And so thank you, Sarah, for your work. I think it's great work. I thought about making my password Sarah #1.
I don't know.
Ryan doesn't like that too much. Okay, won't do that. Okay. It is with enormous pleasure that I join you today as your commissioner. I'm grateful to President Trump and Secretary Kennedy for providing me with this opportunity to work towards the common bipartisan goal of making America healthy again. We have a big part of that here at the FDA. Many of the best ideas in healthcare come from the centers within the FDA. They come from you. Many of the best ideas come from you. I'm well aware that many of you just finished your lunch here and we're just having a gathering at 1:22 p.m. Your food is about to pass the duodenum and maybe make you a little sleepy. So I'm going to just share some stories, if that's okay. The first story is the story of what has transpired over the last 100 years. It is the story of American healthcare. It's an amazing story. Childbirth went from being a common cause of death in women to becoming safe. With the advent of antibiotics, perhaps the greatest achievement in the history of modern medicine, no longer would children die of an ear infection or from a small cut while playing outside. Anesthesia would enable surgeons to perform elegant operations. Antiseptic technique converted the death rate from surgery from 1 in 5 surgical patients dying to 1 in 100,000. Sanitation and good hygiene contributed to a safer food supply and lower rates of communicable diseases. Doctors began managing diseases and then successfully were able to eliminate some. For many types of cancer, there were now effective treatments. And for some cancers, the centuries-old approach of simply providing palliation or comfort was transformed into a new approach of curing those cancers, all in the last 2 generations. Today, the explosion of medical discovery and innovation is revolutionizing healthcare. It's amazing. Brain mapping and its approach in neurosurgery, targeted cancer treatments, gene therapy for sickle cell and many other conditions previously assumed to be incurable when many of us were in medical school. The potential of stem cells, AI design therapies, and protein modeling is truly life-changing and mind-boggling. These are advancements we should all take pride in, as they are an achievement of humanity. In one living generation, our generation, we have witnessed a revolution in bioscience. But also in our generation, we are witnessing a transformation of the health of the population. Just one living generation ago, chronic diseases were rare in children. One living generation ago, we had conditions that a doctor may see once or twice in their careers, and now they'll see almost every day. We have witnessed an epidemic of disease scour across this country, to the point where now half of our nation's children are obese or overweight. 20% of teens have diabetes or insulin resistance. Over 70% of young people do not qualify for military service. In our generation, colorectal cancer is increasingly striking younger and younger people. I've seen it. Liver cancer rates have tripled. Polycystic ovarian disease, causing infertility and suffering and pain, is epidemic, now afflicting 1 in 8 women. Sperm counts are down 50% since the time our parents were born. And autism has increased 14% each year for the last 23 consecutive years, now affecting 1 in 22 boys in California. Autoimmune diseases have soared and now affect 1 in 5 women. Peanut and other food allergies that were rare 1 generation ago are now common and life-threatening. America is not getting healthier as a population. The country is getting sicker. It is almost as if our healthcare system and those in it have been so busy telling clinicians to focus on billing and coding and seeing patients in short visits at high volume with throughput being the metric, that we haven't had the time to stop and look around. If we pause and take a serious look at the statistics, they are telling us one simple message: that our nation's children are not on a good path. Our country desperately needs you. They desperately need you and your ideas. They need the FDA's scientists to ensure public safety, examine root causes of other medical problems that are unforeseen, using the disciplines of toxicology, environmental health, food safety, and basic scientific methodology. You are in a unique position to address many of these problems one small piece at a time. Our generation's new chronic disease epidemic also means that we need novel therapies, cures, and meaningful treatments. It also means that we need new approaches. We need fresh new ideas. To do this, we have to listen to one another, a lesson that applies, in my opinion, to our broader polarized society. We need to recognize nuance, promote civil discourse. In fact, science has always been based on civil discourse, on debating and discussing different ideas. Different opinions in the scientific sphere among experts are good, they're not bad. we have to have a humility to follow what the evidence may tell us, challenging our preconceived ideas, challenging what we believe to be true. Challenging deeply held assumptions that lack evidence and allowing experts to debate new approaches to old problems is exactly what we need right now. Our country is sick. Obesity is not a willpower problem. Food deserts are not a genetic issue. To address the biggest health needs of this country, we need new ideas and fresh new perspectives. We need open-mindedness and a willingness to challenge deeply held assumptions, just as scientists did in challenging opioids were not addictive, that sugar is healthy, that smoking is not bad for you. Some doctors argued when tobacco products were introduced into society, they were good for you. They kind of cleared out your pulmonary system. The dogma that babies don't feel pain because they won't remember it. That the way to recover from a heart attack was to have 30 days of strict bed rest and have food brought to you. That food allergies are primarily an issue of your DNA. That stomach ulcers were caused by stress. That bloodletting was the way to relieve your body of infections, which, as you know, they did not far from here to President Washington when he sustained a significant infection. Now more than ever, we need people with a range of perspectives and critical thinkers to respond, following the scientific method and using common sense. The FDA is America's health and safety hub for the world's innovators. It's also the hub of scientific discourse at the highest level in healthcare, which is why I consider it a tremendous honor to be joining you here at the agency. Many of you have been listening to smart innovators describe their new proposed products to understand how they work and how, as an agency, we can do our best to ensure public safety. It can be a hard job. For some of you, you've been hosting experts and listening for decades, and we'll continue to do that. We'll be hosting experts to give powerful lectures about the cutting-edge areas of medicine and food science. We'll be convening experts to discuss timely issues from different perspectives, ranging from approaches to menopause to artificial intelligence. I want to be very clear. I value the career staff at the FDA enormously and the wisdom that all of you hold. I will be meeting with many of you, as many as possible, to learn and to find out how I can best support your work as we adapt to the new world of medical innovation and discovery at a time when we are dealing with a worsening health of the population. I know the last few months have been difficult, and the last few days have been particularly hard. I want you to know that you have my commitment, that I will do everything possible to make sure that scientists, clinicians, inspectors, investigators, and core staff central to the mission and operations of this agency will have all the resources they need to do their job, and I will do my best. The FDA is an incredible institution dedicated to public safety and facilitating innovation for the betterment of people worldwide, not just in the United States. Doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, midwives, doulas, families that own restaurants, farmers, grocery workers look to the FDA for public safety. It's an incredible brand. The world looks to the FDA. My grandfather looked to the FDA. From the African continent, my grandfather knew that the good people here, who we never met, we never came to the United States, were watching out for the patients he cared for as a pharmacist. My father dedicated his life to the care of children with leukemia, lymphoma, hemophilia, and other hematologic conditions, and then turned his focus to adult hematology. The world looks to the FDA for trusted guidance. That's because the FDA has a long history of using gold standard science to uphold public safety and help us as clinicians as we take care of people when they come to us for help. America's first hospital, Pennsylvania Hospital in Center City, Philadelphia, had a charter similar to that of many hospitals in the United States, a charter to care for the sick and injured regardless of one's race, creed, or ability to pay. During the Civil War, injured soldiers from both sides of the war filled the hospital where I worked, not when I worked there, but when I worked, which was a testament to this creed. As one physician once said, "No one knows the value of human life more than those who witness birth and death." As a kid, I vividly remember being at the grocery store with my dad when somebody immediately stopped shopping and dropped everything to walk over to give him a big hug. Turns out he had a long battle with lymphoma. It was a beautiful thing. It didn't matter what the person's politics were. Dad took care of anybody. It happened a few times. Each time it inspired me. For 22 years now, I've had the privilege to walk in to work at the Johns Hopkins Hospital and to live out as best I can his mission to serve the public, treating everybody equal to the best of our ability. Sometimes I got it right, sometimes I didn't. Every time I learned. Each morning as I entered the front door of the hospital, and it's going to be strange not to do that anymore, but every morning when I would walk in from the parking garage to my office and go through the main door of the hospital, and many of you have been there, about 45 miles up 95. I would pause and look at the 9-foot statue of Jesus that stands in the lobby and read the sacred text at the base, "Come to me, all ye who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Just as the Make America Healthy Again message resonated with Republicans, Democrats, independents, moms, dads across this country, it is my hope that this will be a uniting issue in the United States, as it should. A smarter FDA that works for all Americans should be a goal that we can all agree on. As a scientist who has spent a career evaluating medical interventions, asking, do they work? Are the risks and benefits lucid? Is it something we should recommend? I believe deeply in the scientific process. And in addition to using trusted science, we can also use common sense. Healthcare is now the largest business in America. We're doing great things, but we could also benefit from some humility. In the case of opioids, a 1980 New England Journal of Medicine article stated that out of 39,946 patients that took opioids, there were 4 cases of addiction, and, quote, addiction was only considered major in 1 instance. A lot of doctors at the time took issue with that article. They said, this is not good science. Somebody just going off the top of their head, trying to see if they could recall how many out of nearly 40,000 patients were addicted. It was a person who worked in the hospital setting and didn't have follow-up in the outpatient setting. Some of those voices were silenced. Some of the associations began a group think, locked arms, and eventually walked off a cliff together. It would take over 2 decades for us to recognize that the opioids we were prescribing patients for minor surgical procedures, some of whom didn't need opioids at all and could have had alternatives to manage their pain, became addicted. Ultimately, people challenged the deeply held assumptions of opioids being non-addictive with good scientific methodology. In the 1960s, there was a rigorous debate as to whether or not saturated fat or refined carbohydrates and sugar caused heart disease. There was a low-fat group and there was a sugar group. Part of the community in science argued that it's plausible that natural saturated fat causes heart disease. Others said, no, it's really the refined carbohydrates and ultra-processed foods that's creating gut inflammation that is disseminating throughout the body, and ultimately coronary artery disease has as a prerequisite inflammation of the coronary artery wall. There was an inflammation camp and there was a saturated fat camp. Well, in the midst of this debate, a set of doctors decided to conduct the end-all study to answer the question. The Minnesota Heart Study, enrolling approximately 9,000 people to either a low-fat diet or a non-low-fat diet. But the results did not go their way. There were more cardiac deaths in the low-fat group. The results were published in 1989, even though the study began in the 1960s. When one of the lead investigators was asked, why did it take 16 years to publish the results? He replied, we were just so disappointed in the way they turned out. But that's not how science is done. We need radical transparency. The public has a right to know many things that are done with public funds. We could benefit from some more humility. What I tell my residents makes a great doctor is not how much knowledge you have. It's knowing your limits. It's knowing when to ask for help. It's knowing when to call a senior physician who may have more wisdom or experience and asking their opinion and being open-minded in receiving that. Humility is an important aspect of all aspects of science. I remember one time I ordered a CAT scan and it got done on the wrong patient. I felt terrible. I wouldn't say I had a great relationship with that patient. I didn't have a bad relationship, but the patient was dealing with a complication of a pancreatic operation. As you know, the pancreas has no capsule. So anytime you operate on the pancreas, you run the risk of fluid and pancreatic fluids filling the abdominal cavity. That fluid had some drains placed. It was a bit of a rocky course for that individual. So when I found out that a scan was done inadvertently on somebody who didn't need it, I thought, gosh, this poor guy has been through so much. I remember walking up to the room of the patient immediately as soon as I learned that the scan was done on the wrong patient. I said, sir, you got a scan that was not intended for you. It was intended for somebody else. I don't know what went wrong. I may have given the wrong name in my haste. I made the order before going into surgery. It could have been in the handoff. It could have been at the clerk. It could have been at the place the orders are received. I don't know, but I take responsibility. I'm happy to go look at the CAT scan results, and whatever it shows, I'm happy to share that with you right now. The patient never sued me. Patient wasn't angry. Patient looked at me and said, Doc, thank you for coming up here right away and sharing that with me. That patient and I went on to become Facebook friends. Science is based on humility, an approach that is so impeccably open to what the data may show, that one is willing to change their view based on new evidence. Changing a position is not a weakness, it's a strength when the evidence evolves. This approach is critically important because we face some major challenges. Our chronic disease epidemic is burdening children and families. In fact, our entire economy is inflicting tremendous unnecessary pain and avoidable suffering. Antimicrobial resistance threatens to undo a century of progress in medicine. Childbirth could become risky again from infections. Kids could once again die from minor infections. We've already seen patients with uncontrolled C. diff colitis require emergency surgery. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Now we have some microbial therapies. Antimicrobial resistance threatens to undo a century of progress. Unforeseen addictions to new products are ripping apart families. In some cases, good kids from good families are addicted and know they're addicted and don't want to be addicted and want to stop their addiction and can't stop their addiction. The physiologic dependence is stronger than they could have ever imagined. We have a duty to address this problem. Thanks to Secretary Kennedy and other bold thinkers, we are now talking about a path forward in dealing with many of the chronic diseases affecting our nation's children and addressing the food supply. We have a generational opportunity in American healthcare. People are taking a strong interest in their personal environment and how they raise children, on the products they purchase. Cell and gene therapies are moving fast and holding tremendous promise. AI is poised to finally help clinicians in their busy day and work streams in a significant way. And a focus on healthy foods right now has galvanized a grassroots movement of parents raising children. We have a generational opportunity to usher in radical transparency and to facilitate more cures, meaningful treatments, and diagnostics to empower people to take care of their own health, to educate people on their own physiology. My father always taught me to write down my observations and experiences in healthcare so that when I had the chance to mentor students, I could share them. Much of the research I did focused on the fundamental question, is what we are doing working? If we look at our entire healthcare system today, the answer is clear. It's not working. It may be working for some, but for America's children, it is not working. I wrote books to educate people on medical science and empower them on living a healthy life as I best understood the medical literature. It's my goal to ensure that the FDA holds to the gold standard of trusted science, transparency, and common sense to rebuild public trust and advance health and safety in the United States and worldwide. I am significantly humbled to be here before you today. And most importantly, thank you for your incredible work in supporting this mission to improve the health and safety of the population. It's a tremendous honor and privilege to be here, and I look forward to getting to know as many of you as I possibly can. So with that, I'll say thank you. Thank you, Dr. Brenner. Thank you, all of you, and thanks for carving time out of your day to join for this time and convening. Thank you so much.
All right, fabulous. So we are adjourning. Dr. Makary is going to stay up here. If folks want to come up, have a handshake, a hug, a fist pump, a high five, a Godspeed. we'll remain up here for a short period of time. I also wanted to thank everyone who's been working very, very hard to support a smooth transition during this time. We have an incredibly dedicated career staff in the Office of the Commissioner throughout the agency, but these guys are fantastic. We got to this moment because of such dedicated civil servants as are across this agency. So thank you all very much for your attention today. All right.